1997. And when you first came here, there was hardly anything. And so we restored this area. Now, also, I want to admit just before we start, is that I knew very little bit about butterflies. Most kids call me Dr. Joyce. I'm a geologist, and I know my rocks really well, but I did not know my butterflies. And this young man came on site, because we have a lot of volunteers on Saturday, and he once said, he says, "Why don't you have too many butterflies here?" And I thought, okay, not sure. And he goes, "You know, I know how to bring butterflies in." And I says, "Okay, well, teach me." So everything I learned about how to breed the different types of butterflies came from this young man, who I later found out was autistic. And his mother was telling me, at his home, he breeds butterflies in his bedroom, and he had butterflies in chrysalis all over the place. So he actually taught me a lot about butterflies, and then since then I've been very, very interested. So if you want also more information about our group, we put our website online. So it's 11:01, so we're going to start. Okay, so let's start with the share. It's going to come in the middle. So, so it froze again. We realize there's sometimes delay times on getting these things to go. So, how about stopped? Okay, so we want you to welcome to Tule Ponds, and as you come up, as you're into Tule Ponds, the first thing you see is a mural created by Harika Kathe. Butterflies are definitely a symbol of beauty and nature. So Harika was one of our, she's actually now becoming a doctor, and a medical doctor, and she is also an artist. But she worked here as I'd known her for a long time, and she'd volunteer here. And so she wanted, when she left, to leave a memory of her art and her science. So this is our front gate. Okay, now. At Tule Ponds, we plant a variety of different plants, from milkweed to mallows, to help bring back certain insects. So this is an area where children maintain, mainly teenagers, and it allows the native animals to come back. So as you can see there, we have milkweed, which is the long skinny stuff right here. And these are some mallows. Those attract the painted lady. And that brings me to that we're going to learn about the painted lady in detail as I read a little story. Like to show you a picture though. In 1998, this is the first time that we started. I mean, you're going to see pictures and it looks lush. These trees here that we planted are now higher than these homes. And this was the first field trip we had. This is Parkmont Elementary School. And we found out that you needed trees for shade, not only for other plants, but there was absolutely no butterflies in 1998. And so with that, I'm going to switch over. Let's see if I can do this quick. I'm going to read you a little storybook that we have on online. Let's see. Okay. No, that's that one. No, I forgot how to do that toggles. Oh, shoot. Okay, so I'm going to share this one. Oh, wait, no. How do I get that? Oh, I just have to hit escape. And new share. And then share. So everybody in a minute should see the painted lady. Okay, do you see that? Toggles, do you see it? Okay, so high flowing. Okay, so this is a little story that I wrote because there was another incident here about in about 2001. All of a sudden, there was all these butterflies, And I thought they were monarchs because, again, I wasn't that brilliant on identifying butterflies. And all of a sudden we found out that they weren't monarchs, they were called the painted lady. So it kind of just got to me that I just didn't know that I wrote this poem about the painted lady. Now the scientific name is Vanessa caduta. Okay, so Vanessa found a lilac chrysalis, the pupa stage a caterpillar made, attached to a mallow plant hanging under a leaf for shade. So this was a chrysalis that we found. A few days before, the cat, dark brown, spiny with light stripes, kept eating and shedding its skin, looking like different types. The caterpillar knew after 3 weeks or so, chemicals in its body will signal it's time to go. Hanging motionless with fits of a wig and a wag, the caterpillar was changing in its little sleeping bag. Weeks before, a female painted lady laid her little green eggs. A caterpillar emerged in a week, crawling on its many legs. A month before, they moved to the north. The butterflies took flight. They migrated from the south in spring. It was a miraculous sight. Vanessa was wise and let the chrysalis be. As the lilac turned reddish brown, the wing colors you could now see. Notice that the chrysalis is starting to break open. The chrysalis began to peel and emerged a butterfly. The blood from its abdomen pumped the wings to fly. The painted lady was beautiful, thought Vanessa to herself. The lady could fly, even land on a shelf. The lady looked for flowers so its proboscis could suck up food. When night arrives, they keep warm in a brood. Vanessa witnessed metamorphosis and was proud that she could see. She now knew the secrets of how a butterfly came to be. Now the painted lady, and we're going to talk about this more in our slideshow, but as you can see here, you have the egg here. See the egg, it's the size of a pinhead. It's very, very teeny. And it changes into, comes out a little caterpillar, and that's called a larva. The caterpillar then will change into its chrysalis, and then the butterfly will come out. And if you didn't understand some of the words, I am going to go over those in a little bit. So this is the end of the poem, but it's not about butterflies. So we're going to learn about, and just excuse me as I start changing this back, we're going to learn a little bit about how the butterflies change and which butterflies we now have on tulipans and what we have to do in order to make this happen. So we're going to go back to our, can you see it? Okay, so got it. So now we're going to go and start learning about our butterfly meadow. Now, if you've never been to tulipans, tulipans has a large pond called Tyson's Lagoon, and this is natural. It's created by the earthquake. In a few weeks, we'll learn about the earthquakes here in tulipans, how it created it. But this has been here for at least 4,000 years. It's one of the oldest lakes that are still in the same place in the Bay Area. But then the county came in and made 3 ponds, and that's what we refer to tulipan. Now, this is an area we did learn right away that we did not have enough butterfly plants to attract the butterflies. So we created a butterfly meadow. And I should say, we didn't create it all. These were all high school kids and college kids. And we had a lot of Eagle Scouts. So this is our butterfly meadow today. And you can see we have different plants. We always have to clean it out from weeds because we get invaded from the community from the weeds that don't belong here. But what we have here is enough milkweed to attract especially the monarch.
Welcome to the butterfly meadow. This part of Tule ponds, we try to plant trees and bushes that attract butterflies and other pollinators.
So we found out that you had to have almost 1 to 2 acres of that plant to attract butterflies and grow them. Right now, our monarch population, for instance, is about at 1,000. And we actually have so many we can grow them inside, which I'll show you later.
The butterfly meadow has varieties of milkweed that attract the monarch. This one, for instance, is the native milkweed. And then in the background, we have the South African milkweed.
So we also found out that insects require water. As a geologist, I kind of didn't know that. And so in the butterfly meadow, what we put was water.
In the butterfly meadow, we also have water. Insects, like most other animals, they need water to survive.
So this was another Eagle Scout project. They created an area where we can have water. So a lot of times you'll see them dipping in there. Debbie later on will show you how you can make your own butterfly watering garden. Okay, so let's go back and let's talk about what a butterfly is. Because the more you learn about butterflies, the more you see how fascinating they are. But let's figure out, butterflies belong to the group, a phylum of organisms called the Arthropoda. And they specifically belong to the class Insecta. And we're going to learn that they are segmented. That means that their internal bodies, like we have one heart, we have one stomach, they have internally, they have segments of pockets. They have a very simple kind of circulation system. One thing about the Insecta is that they have an external skeleton. We have an internal skeleton. That means that our body can get big, but insects have a problem. As they get bigger, they have to molt or get rid of their skin on the outside, their external skeleton, and a new one has to pop up as they grow. So they're very, very vulnerable at that time. And that's called a molt. Like I said, they have a simple circulation system. They're not as complicated as us. Their organs are not as many as we have. They have 3 pairs of legs, so 6 total. This is the Insecta group as a whole. And they do something weird, like many organisms cannot do, is that they can metamorphose. That means that they can change their style. They can do simple or complex. And we're going to find out that the butterflies all do complex. They have a complete metamorphosis, unlike some of the other insects that we find. And then also Insecta has compound eyes. And they have funny eyes. So they, instead of seeing one thing like we do, they see many, many, many things because their eyes are full of these little ocelli, or little eyes. So their eyes are very, very different than us. Okay, now let's take a look at the bodies of Insecta, and then we'll look at the body of a butterfly. So, because this is how we identify them. And scientists always like to figure out, not just to say that it's a butterfly, but to identify it and why. And that's important as you learn more about things. The more you know about them, the more you can identify them correctly. So the body parts of Insecta include the head, which is this top part here, and it has antennae. So Insecta all have these little antennae here. The compound eyes are up in the front. Then they have a thorax, or what we would call like a lung. And if you notice, they have one pair coming out, and then they have wings. Not all Insecta have wings, but they usually have a but on a butterfly, this is a very important part. They have a fore and a hind, and so they have a total of 4. And then they have the abdomen. Probably in the little reading talked about that the abdomen got fat, and then all of a sudden it got thin as it emerged. This is, the abdomen is where the blood is stored. And then as it got larger, you'll see that on a butterfly, it needs to go out to the wings. But notice in here, it has, now on the abdomen, it just has one set of legs. So the thorax has 2 sets of legs plus the wings, and the abdomen has just one set of legs. Okay, now let's look at the butterflies. So we're going to talk, this whole group of butterflies and moths is called the Lepidoptera. And so that is L-E-P-I-D means scales, and P-T-E-R-A means wings. So it's winged scales, as we'll talk about in a little bit. That's something very unique to butterflies and moths. And of course, we have to talk about moths because you know, behind me over here, you've kind of probably been wondering what these guys are. But this is a little caterpillar of the silkworm, okay, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Those are moths. Okay, now I use the word in the story, proboscis. Proboscis is this, it's like a part of the, if you look on the, this right in here, is the proboscis. It's kind of like a straw, and that's how it gets its nectar. It comes out, we'll see some live pictures of it in a little bit. They have 2 wings, the forewing and the hind. And these are important because you ever think about it, the flying of a butterfly looks kind of weird. And these become very important because if you look in here, like these little veins in here, this is where the blood has to circulate through. And it has to be warm enough where it can take flight. It has complete metamorphosis. So that means it goes through an egg, a larva, a pupa, and adult stage. It also has compound eyes. And it has something kind of cool on its kind of butt area here. This is called a spiracle, but that's where it actually breathes. And it is like us. It breathes in oxygen and it breathes out carbon dioxide. And then they have these tiny scales or wings that overlap. So let's look at a really close up. These are actually beautiful. A lot of artists will use them as inspiration. But here is the one on the right is a butterfly, and you could see these scales, and you could see the lunar moth. And Debbie's going to show you a lunar moth later on. But these are just super colorful scales on their wings, and it helps to guide it to fly. Okay, now let's look at the difference between a butterfly and a moth, because of course we want to look at this scientifically. We have these funny things flying all over the place, but there is a big difference if you want to know the difference between a butterfly and a moth. Now let's look at the antennae. The antennae on butterfly are clubbed. They're kind of round. So when we look at these real pictures of butterflies, you'll see that they are kind of round. And then we'll look at a moth. They're fluffy and feathery. Their body on a butterfly is thin and smooth, and a moth, on the other hand, is thick and fuzzy. Mostly the butterflies are active during the day. They go to sleep at night. The moths, on the other hand, like to go out at night. They're night owls. Their color is different. Butterflies usually are very colorful, where the moths are kind of dull. Now, and this is an important thing that I want to make sure you guys know the difference. A butterfly has a chrysalis, which is the pupa stage. It doesn't have any protection over it, where a moth has a cocoon. It actually weaves a cocoon over it, and that's protecting the pupa. So the moth cocoons, you can find them if you're digging in the ground, you'll sometimes see them. But on the other hand, the pupa of the butterfly is very, very careful. Just to look, can you guys see this? How goes, can you see that? Okay, that is a monarch butterfly pupa. We grow them inside here. We took this one out and we glued it to the stick. It normally wouldn't do that. But if you notice it, it's very, very delicate. You can see the little kind of gold little dots in there. So if I held this with my hands, the oil from my hands can actually, you know, hurt it. Where on a moth, it won't do that. So if I look over here, let me see. I'm going to just take one out. This is from my silkworms. Can you see this? You can see it is on the outside. So the pupa is on the inside and this is protecting it. So this is the silk, and I'll talk more about silkworms. But this later will come out and be a moth. Now, another way to tell the difference between these guys is the wings are vertical when they're resting, and on a moth, they're flat. And another thing as a geologist, which I really like, is moths evolved much earlier than the butterflies. They were on Earth about 100 million years before that. And you have to remember the butterfly had to develop when there was flowering plants, and that was not until after when the dinosaurs roamed. So about 65 million years ago, that's when we start seeing our first butterflies. To me, that's kind of cool. Now, also down here, you can see the, on the cocoon inside, that's what the pupa of the silkworm will look like. And if you take it out, it can still survive. Okay, now let's go back to the painted lady. Remember I told you that I got real interested in butterflies when one day I was sitting here and look at all these butterflies. There's over 1,000 butterflies in this one picture. And I was going, oh, these are the ones I thought were monarchs. But then when I looked at them closer, they were smaller. They had, their pattern was not the same. So look, if you look at the pattern, and on the other side, we'll see a live picture of them, it doesn't have the same coloration. And so I was just amazed that this little egg produced the caterpillar, which produced the chrysalis, which produced the butterfly. So this is them growing on our Pride of Madeira, which we have out here. But look over here, guys. This is an egg. One of those, the painted lady will plant multiple eggs, unlike the monarch, which only lays one egg on a leaf at a time. But see how teeny they are. And then it will come out to be like that. Okay, now, what kind of plants do they like? Let's go back to our butterfly model.
This is looking at the butterfly meadow, which is about an acre of different types of plants. The one we're walking toward is a Marsh Mallow. The early Native Americans would eat the root, they would roast it, and would have the flavor of today's marsh mallow. Marsh meaning wet, and mallow is the type of plant. The painted lady loves this plant.
So underneath these leaves here, this is where they would plant their where they would put their eggs in there. So a marshmallow that we eat is a painted lady's preferred bush. Okay, so remember I told you Vanessa caduta was the name of the painted lady. So let's take a look and this is in time motion. What's going to happen here? Notice the wig and the wag. Going to open them up, and this is gravity. So if you put the chrysalis on the side, it would not come out. It needs gravity. It's pushing with its front. You can see the antennae are out, and its proboscis is coming out, and it's grabbing on for dear life. It needs to get up so that its wings, so the blood in the abdomen will come down. So you see how fat its abdomen is, and then the blood will come out, and you can see that underside is doesn't look like a monarch. And the gravity just keeps pulling it down. This would take normally about 20 minutes for this to happen, but this is very vulnerable, the animal. Sometimes it gets stuck in there. You can see where it's trying to pull. Aha, and there's the outside of it. Doesn't even look like a monarch now, but that's kind of what it looks like. Okay, so the painted lady is found in North America. It migrates to the north during the summer. In our area, the invasion comes every 7 to 10 years. And it has to do with El Nino and the weather pattern, and it comes across the Mojave Desert. And it uses several host plants, unlike the monarch, which just uses the milkweed. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about a monarch butterfly. What the chrysalis I just showed you was a monarch, but I want to just go over here and I want to see if this is how we raise them in our classroom. And as you can see, the one hanging there, this one just emerged this morning. And so you can see it isn't strong enough. It usually needs about 24 hours before its wings are stiff enough to go out and fly. So it's just hanging there. And you can see the other, can you see those, August? Can you see? Yeah. Okay. So this is how we raise about 1,000 a year. And that helps keep our operations. But a lot of people have never seen the real deal. Yeah. So monarch butterflies are kind of neat. They are native from Lower Canada to continental United States and Central America. So they are really a North American species. As you can see from this area, a lot of people know about the migration from where it says USA to Atlantic. They know about this migration to Mexico. And a lot of people think that that's where ours come from. But guess what? Our butterflies come from the Denver area. And from the Denver area, they come down here and they live in the San Francisco area, this area right along the coastal area. And then it can go up and back down. So ours are a little different. They are almost, they are genetically the same as the other ones. So those can actually have their own babies. But there's another one in South America that looks exactly like it. But if you put them together in a cage, they will not have babies. Okay, now we have a kid. So now we have milkweed is the host plant of the monarch. So if you want monarchs, you need to have lots of milkweed. And they come in very many beautiful colors. This one's a tropical milkweed. This one here is
Tule. As you can see, it starts to grow runners and comes up from there. This produces a flower that is very showy.
So we have about 5 to 7 different types of milkweed around the property. And milkweed, if you don't know why it's called milkweed, anytime you break it open, guess what comes out? Something that, it's not milk, so you can't drink it, but it's kind of like a latex. If you lick it, it's kind of bitter. But it's this milky stuff that protects the monarch from many of its enemies. So it gives the monarch itself has a very bitter taste to it. Not prevents it. They will eat them, but they don't taste as well.
This is
Okay, now let's take the difference. Let's look at a monarch and see if we can figure out what's a girl and a boy. Female means girl. So a female has no dots. You're probably going, what is dots? So let's take a look. This is a milkweed. This is one that was here flying around earlier this week. But if you look in the back here, it has no little dots. But let's take a real close look to this. see it has dots all over the place. And all of them have these features. So they're very, and this is an activity that Debbie's going to show you, to show you how they are bisymmetrical. And okay, now let's take a look at a boy monarch. Guys, see these little black dots here? That's what tells you it's a boy.
This is a male monarch. You can see that it has these dots. You can see they have a little relief to them. Those are where they have pheromones to attract the female. So this is a male.
Okay, so there are male and female butterflies, and they do look a little bit different. Okay, so let's look at the life cycle of a monarch. And I want to make sure that you understand, and let me take a live one so you guys can compare. But this is, I'm getting one of our, if you notice here, can you see this is the antennae right in here, and you can see, oh, and also these guys can dance. If I talk really loud, it usually bounces the little antennae. But as you can see here, it looks very similar to this picture. Now this little guy, this is the front part, and this is its little butt. And what they do is they eat all day, and then they kind of poop it out at night. But what they do is they have about, I think it's about 7 molts. Oh, guys, see the other little one right there? And so it has to lose, this is where it molts. It'll take out that skin, and a larger one will come out. Again, monarchs are much more delicate than our moths. Okay. So now the word eclose is when they are emerging from the chrysalis or from the egg. So let's take a look at how a monarch goes. Very similar to the painted lady. You can tell when it's ready to come out because it has that dark, dark color. And it's struggling to come out. And if you remember, what's that word that's pulling it down? That's called gravity. And it's coming down, it's pushing itself out. I've had to do a few operations sometimes. Sometimes they get stuck in there. And you can see this big abdomen is going to plop it down. The antennae are out. And the proboscis, which you see the two, and here is the abdomen full of blood. Now, I was lucky earlier this week, I filmed one that's from here, and I take it from when it's pulled down. You can see the antennae there. So this is in real time. And you could see that the abdomen will go back and forth, just the gravity pulling it. And if you could slowly start seeing that the wings are starting to go down. But like I said, it takes about, 10 minutes for that whole complete cycle. So, but this is what we look at all the time. It is just almost a miracle to see these beautiful creatures. Okay, now I'm just going to quickly go through some of the other butterflies that we have here. One is called the Buckeye. And it almost looks like a moth. It's not as pretty as the other ones, but it has these little what we call setae that come out here. But this is the caterpillar, and then this is the eggs. They put more than one egg, unlike. But look at their chrysalis. Isn't that kind of ugly looking? But it makes a beautiful butterfly. And this one here lives in the southern states. And then it goes north during the summer. So this is, again, a North American species. Then, do you know what the California state insect is? It's a butterfly, and it's not the monarch. It's called the Dogface Butterfly. Now, if you could use your imagination, do you see on the male, because this one is the male, the one on the top, the one on the bottom is the female, but people see this as a dog. So that's the eye of the dog, and that, I guess, is the snout. I don't kind of see it, but that's why it's called the Dogface Butterfly. We're trying to get more of the dog face here. We only have a few every year, but we'd like to get it up. But we have to get the population of a plant called false indigo, which you'll see a picture in a little bit. But it's hard to grow. Well, not hard to grow, it's slow to grow. So we still need, we only have about 5 plants right now. But let's look at more.
This is false indigo, which is the host plant of the Dogface Butterfly, which is the state insect of California.
So we're growing them. So these are, this is an egg of the dog face. You can see it's not round like the other ones, but it almost has that watermelon quality with stripes on its side. Now you can see the little baby is white and it's decided to eat its own. So this, of course, is time lapse. And that one has, look at the color, this one has a little green one. Now, so we do see the little, I haven't found an egg yet, but I have found the little caterpillars running around. Now this is the caterpillar when it's getting ready to form its chrysalis. And this one has a different, look at the different angle of it. Gravity still has to play a part. It goes and it makes a thread of kind of like a silk-like structure. And if you notice in here, it's losing its last molt. Now, just in case, you're probably going, well, what's happening in there? Well, basically, it is, not many animals do this. They metamorphose. And what that means is that they basically turn, and I've kind of cut some of these open, not on purpose, but you'll see that it's almost like they chemically change themselves. And so the molecules actually reform into the butterfly that's coming out. So this is just unique to just a few group of organisms, and the only vertebrate that does it is a frog, and that's a miracle in and of itself. But let's take a look. This is how it's merging. So this is a dog face just about to come out. Again, gravity, look how it's going to drop, but this one picks itself up, and then gravity will, and if you notice, it is a female. It doesn't have that dog face. So let's take a look at what we have here. So I want to talk just a little bit about the moths, but these are our, and one has been behind me, and I have a bigger one, but let's take a look.
We are walking into a silkworm jungle. As you can see, these little critters are eating up a storm. If you look at them close, they go along the leaf and just eat it until the leaf is totally gone. You can see there's a little teeny one right here trying to get to the milkweed. We feed them every day. Then what they do is they start molting.
Okay, so then the one behind me here, you can see that this little guy, they're super soft guys. Can they see them, Bubbles? Can you see the, yeah, okay. You can see this one is this is like its third molt in here. And you can see its big nose in there, or whatever. It's not really a nose, but kind of looks like a nose. And it's looking for something to eat. And so it has these sticky, and let me get a bigger one. The kids love, we will let the children touch the silkworm. So this is actually something you could do at home if you got if you have a mulberry. I think I said milkweed in the video, but you need mulberry leaves. We have a mulberry tree here at Tule ponds, but this little guy here, you can pet them. They're really resistant. And if you notice, they have a little spike in there. So these are just kind of neat little guys, and they're eating all the time until they make it. Takes them about 2 weeks from when they come out of the egg to when they will kind of molt. Let me take, like I said, they poop all the time. Oh, cool, I got one pooping. Oh, wait a second. Can you see him here? Yeah. Okay, as you can see them, it's eating. Whoop, just dropped them. Okay. Now, let's take a look at them making a cocoon. So,
this silkworm is starting to produce a pupa, and it is creating a cocoon which protects the pupa from any harm. That's why they are different than a butterfly who makes a chrysalis, which is on the outside, so they're much more fragile. But if you can see, this little guy is spinning one thread of silk as it makes its little cocoon.
okay, so they're spinning these all the time. Now, this is the cycle of when you're going from A, and then you have these different forms of the silkworm. Now, if you notice in here, you probably figured out by now, is that who's ever writing on the screen, could you please stop? Otherwise, we're going to remove you totally from the session. So do you want to fix this? Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to talk and others are going to come and fix these. We're still learning a little bit about how to prevent little kids from writing on things. But Mrs. Nye, she's a parent. She actually bred her own silkworms and she made this silk. So silk actually comes from silkworms, but unfortunately, you have to, at that stage, you have to boil it and then make the threads from there. Silkworms, as they are creating their silk, it does it in one strand. And so that one strand is the one that you would need to make. It's very fascinating. You can go online and, Pablos, can I get rid of this on the bottom? Yeah, okay. So this one in here, you can see from the egg all the way, and it's at this stage that they boil it, and then they take the one string out. Okay, now it got stuck. Ah. We got stuck now. So it won't go. Technical difficulties. No, hold on. So this really share. Dang kids, huh? Okay, I'm here, guys. I'm trying to get this back. Whoever was writing on that was very not nice. So I have to go in and share it again. And escape. Oh. No, I'm going to share screen of that one. But now I have to go. Yeah. So it's shared. Can you see it now? But now I have to go to. Okay. So we're back on, guys. Let me just turn that away. I'm floating. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So now. Not doing it.
As you see, these silkworms are eating their favorite treat, the mulberry. From last year, these are eggs that will eventually hatch. You could see their face, the little snozzle there. That's where they're eating. and the other side is where they poop. Now, they eat continuously, so a lot of times you'll find these little pellets, and that is their poop pellets.
Okay, so this was, I kind of went over this material that shows the life cycle, and the product that it creates is silk.
We have several displays of silkworms. As you can see here, we have a big sock that was weaved by Mrs. Nye from the silk. She produced the silk herself by breeding the silkworms and then extracting the thread from the cocoons. These are the cocoons, and you can see the moth has come out.
With the older students, we learn about the chemistry of silk and how it's similar to nylon, which replaced basically silk, because silk takes a long time to make the product. Okay, and then this is another native moth that we have here. Just have this picture here to just show you the antennae, see how fluffy they are. But there's moths and there's butterflies kind of all around. Now what we'd like to do is projects that you can do at home with Debbie. So can you get Debbie on for us? So Debbie is, like I said, from North Carolina. And you got it? Well, I'll have.
Okay. Hey everybody. Can you hear me? I'm coming to you from North Carolina. We just had a big giant rainstorm. Not sure if you guys have had any rain lately, but we're still getting a few drizzles here. But I wanted to show you real quick how you could make your own little butterfly habitat. Even if you don't have a big yard, you just need a small space where you could put like a plastic plate. It's what I've got. You could glass, whatever you could have, but I just used this plastic one. It's what I had. I happen to have a couple little rocks. I've just spaced them out enough. And then I've got an orange I cut up. Orange is great. Bananas, any kind of fruit, watermelon, all that stuff is good for these butterflies. So what I'm going to do is just kind of space these out around. So the butterflies would use this as kind of a food stop. Yeah, they need those native plants as their host plants, but if they're still traveling, this way they could get a little snack on the way and also a little sip of water. So now if I just fill a little bit of water down underneath, I've spaced things out because, did you know, butterflies can't swim. Poor little butterflies. But they do need to be able to drink. So this way, it's called puddling. If they find a small little mud puddle, with this example, they can just sit on the little rocks. Meanwhile, they've got their oranges. So again, you could use any kind of fruit, any kind of tray, any kind of rocks you can find, and you've got your own little butterfly habitat right there. Thanks.
So Debbie, you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is just an example. A lot of our butterflies are migrating. Did you know that the painted lady flies about 30 miles an hour, and it may travel as many as 100 miles a day? So as they're migrating and moving around, they do need to have little snacks and breaks along the way. So this is just a way that you can provide a little bit of break for them, give them some extra nectar from the sweets. They need the sweets for their muscles for flying, and a little bit of a water break. All right, go to the next one. Oh, that's the same. There you go. Hey, everybody, we're going to try an art activity. We're going to work on the symmetry of butterflies. Symmetry is when one side looks just like the other. So this is a bilateral symmetry. So you're going to take a big piece of paper, if you can find one, regular copy paper, school paper, anything will work, construction paper. Just fold that paper in half. Make a good hard crease. Open your paper back up, and we've got a little bit of black paint. Just dab some black paint on your brush, and now just do a dot for the head, a dot for the thorax, and then a dot for the abdomen. And now while your paint's wet, fold your paper over. Flatten it down again. What do you think's going to happen to that little dot that you just put in there? Let's see, Megan, let's see what happens. There we go. So we've got our body of our butterfly started, our head, thorax, and abdomen. Now we need to make the outline on just one side of the top part of the wing. Got to do it quick though, so your paint's still wet. All right, let's fold our sheet over. Let's see what happens. Ta-da! One side is equal to the other. So you see how it's straight up, the bilateral symmetry. Now, butterflies don't have just the solid wing on one side. They have a top wing and a bottom wing. So now Megan's going to add another part of the wing. Bottom piece. Same thing. Fold it over while the paint's wet. Give it a little smush down. See what happens. Ta-da! Beautiful print. Now she has got a picture of a monarch butterfly, and she's going to go through on one side, just one side only, lay down the black paint if she needs other black paint for the veins, and then again close the piece of paper, and then she's going to start adding some orange, and then she'll add a little bit of white. That's just the little tiny white dots, but she's only got to do a couple lines at a time because remember her paint still needs to be wet so that it'll make the print on the other side. So let's see, she's got a couple veins and divisions down. All right, looking pretty good. Now she's going to add her orange. Again, all she has to do is work on one side. And you can even do the top wing at one time and then the bottom wing at a different time. So you make sure you have your paint still pretty wet. There we go, good job. Time to do the bottom part of the wing. Ooh, my camera's moving around funny. It's trying to figure out where to focus. There we go, that's maybe better. All right, so here we're again looking at the bilateral symmetry. So we're just painting on one side and then folding it over, making the print on the other. So she's going to keep playing with her drawing as she wants to. She may want to add her two little antennas. She might want to add some of the white polka dots. So we'll let her finish up with her drawing. And you guys look around, see what you have at home. You could do this with paint, of course, is going to be the best. You might be able to do it even with some magic markers. You'd have to move really, really fast. But look around, see what you can find.
Okay, so if you guys remember, if you were with us, oh, it's gonna keep playing the next one?
Oh, I could go back.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can you film me? Can you show me on the camera?
Oh, is she on the camera? Can you make her big?
That's okay, I'll show it at the end.
Well, they can see you. Oh yeah, because once we do that, then we can't go back.
Okay, that's fine. I'll do this other stuff at the end then.
Okay.
That's fine.
Hey, wanted to show you a couple things you could do if you find some bugs that have already died. They're no longer alive. They used to be alive, but they're no longer alive. But it's a cool way of being able to study them. Now, I found an old cardboard box that has a plastic lid to it that's see-through. So all I did was cut a piece of white fabric, or white paper. Could be fabric, could be a sponge, anything like that. I'm using a little bit of the liquid glue just to put down, because in case I want my specimen back, then I can just soak that in water. Now look at this. I've carried this around for a little bit. This is a lunar moth. Now it used to be a bright green color. It was sitting out in the sun. I found it at a horse barn, and it, I think, had been sitting there for a while because it's lost a lot of its color. So all I'm going to do is put a little bit of this liquid glue right along the main line of the fuzzy part of the body, and then I'm going to lay it right down onto the container, just like that. I'm going to give it a few minutes. I'll lay it down flat so that it'll glue down and harden. And then see, I've got a nice little plastic top that I can put over it. Ta-da! And now I've got a nice specimen that I can use to study. I can look it up, identify it, learn all about it. Dr. Blueford also has these really cool hand lenses, so they stay protected until you need to look at stuff. But these are a really cool way to look at these animals without getting worried about getting bit or stung or anything. They can't hurt you anyway this way, and you can't hurt the animals either. So again, you can use your collection boxes. Let me show you a few others. This is just a little plastic box. I put some cotton batting in it, the bottom, because this one I wanted to be able to take out to be able to look at and try to identify. I know it's some kind of moth, but I'm not exactly sure which kind. Let me show you, oh, from our storybook. Here's a painted lady. And that's a piece of like sponge that's in this little case. Some jewelry I think maybe came in. But yeah, that's the painted lady there. And let's see if you can figure out what this one is. This is a case just that like screws or from the hardware store and all come in. But can you see the bottom part here? Let me see if I can get the right side. There you go. That's the chrysalis. Chrysalis from a painted lady. Isn't that cool? Now I can show you a couple other things. This one is really neat though. This one is a type of swallowtail. Again, I need to look it up and find out exactly which kind it is. The swallowtail, see it's missing one part of the wing. Again, it was an animal that was already dead when I got to it. But again, I can look at it and study it, and you can see all the scales up close with the microscopes or the hand lenses. But that's pretty cool, isn't it? And you look at this case, moms and dads, teachers, I bet you guys know what this case is from. I'll leave it up to you, see if you can figure it out. Kids, you probably won't know it. It's before your time. So we'll see if anybody can figure out what this case is from. All right, so that's a great way to study bugs and all. If you find any butterflies and moths that have already expired, this is a great way to study and learn a little more about them.
So I say, stop video. No, not what I do. New share or.
Okay, can you guys hear me? I think you guys can hear me now. Yeah, you can hear me? Great. I got some thumbs up. Good. All right, everybody. Again, I'm in North Carolina. But remember a couple, was it last week when we did the tree? And we also talked about symmetry, how we took a leaf and we cut the leaf in two. And then you had to draw the other side of the leaf. So that way you could tell the detail on the edges of the butterflies. Well, you can do the same thing. I found a few different butterfly prints just online, like on Pinterest, or just look up a butterfly outline. And look at how different all these different wings are. So you could do the same thing where we could practice. You could cut this paper, cut it into, and then you have to draw the other side on. But that's a great way to kind of notice and recognize the coloring and all the different wings, the shapes of them, what they're for. Now, if you go to our website, the msnucleus.org, you'll look up on the top left, it'll have storybooks, and that's where you can find the painted lady. But you can also follow a link that will get you to a website, to the curriculum that has lessons. And on our lessons, there's also a couple pictures that also show the caterpillars and the chrysalis. Okay, so some other examples there that are already provided for you. Again, this information is for the teachers or for your parents to help you read through. But then it'll also lead you to a monarch life cycle wheel. So I have this where I've already printed it out, and it's got two pieces to it. So I've already cut out this one part, okay? The second part, I've already colored it up. You can see again that we have the eggs. Remember, the monarch only lays just one egg, so you'll notice that there's just one egg there. Then it goes to the caterpillar, then it goes to the chrysalis, and the butterfly. So I've used just a paper clip, because I didn't have a brad, so I've just got a paper clip that I've put in there. And that way you can cut this out as well, cut this other part of the circle out, and then you've got your own little life cycle that you can spin through and take it with you when you go outside and look around, because you might be able to search around some plants and find those caterpillars and those eggs as well. All right, let's see. Another fun thing that I did too was with those pictures that I have that I colored, or if you have old calendars, sometimes you can find old pictures there. Look, I've got a picture of a painted lady. And with this painted lady, I've just taped it to the back of a binder clip. And so now what I might do is I might stick this somewhere in my house, and I have so that my siblings have to, my brothers or sisters have to find it, or have your parents hide it somewhere and then see if you can find it, okay? I have this clip on the back so that I'm in my backyard. So I could actually attach it to my trees back here, and I could put a whole bunch of them out and see if the kids can find them. So again, it's just a different way of trying to look for those, because these days, these butterflies do try to blend in. That's their whole part, is they're trying to hide. I do have one kind of book I can show you real quick. This is actually, here's the butterfly, open wings that you see. But when the wings fold up, it looks like a leaf. You guys see how that looks like a leaf? So then if I was out walking around in the woods, then I'd actually have a hard time finding it on this page. Can you guys see it yet? I'm gonna turn, there you go. Can you see the antennas? Okay, so these guys are kind of tricky to find. You have got to use your great observation skills to try to find them. So I think that is all I've got. You guys got a few things you guys can do? Yeah? All right. If anybody has a question, do you want to try to, on your bar for Zoom, you can see if you can raise your hand, and Hagos will try to unmute you so that we can ask a question if anybody's got any questions. Wraps itself up. So imagine if you had to have, say, a roll of toilet paper because you can't make your silk. If you used a roll of toilet paper and you had to sit there and wrap yourself around in the roll of toilet paper, that's exactly what that's what that caterpillar's doing. Because it takes a long time to how thin that thread was. So it takes a long time. At first, it kind of just looks like it's kind of foggy, like a little bit of cotton around it, but then it keeps spinning and keeps spinning, and then it makes it super thick so you can't see through the cocoon. And eventually, when he's done doing the chemical change and wants to come out as the moth, he has to eat his way out. So he opens the end and eats out one end. So hopefully when all this virus stuff is done, you guys can get back to Tule ponds and you can see those silkworms. We have them for a long time, but they are really fun to pet because they're soft and furry. Okay, great question. Oh, anybody else? Autumn? I think Autumn has her hand up. Hagos, can you unmute Autumn? I'm looking around. I don't think I see anybody else. All right, well, we will be back next Friday. We've got another lesson and we'll do the same thing. We'll put up a front screen and Hagos will be the host, and then Dr. Bluford, and then I will come in. My name is Debbie. You can email me at davidson@msnucleus.org. And we will be back with you, I guess, next Friday. All right? All right, on the bottom right, maybe, I think you have a thing that says to leave the meeting.